Following content is recommended for adult audiences only. It contains violence and sometimes harsh language. Viewer discretion is advised. Previously on Digimon Protectors, Captain Archer embarks on his mission to stop Railius and his Daedalus cult. Prior to his departure, Cyrusmon tells him to stay out of his way when Railius shows himself, whenever that is. Archer agreeing, but doesn't get an answer if Cyrusmon will come to his aid. Arriving at Hiro Ishada's apartment, the father of Matt and TK, Archer learns that the Fuji TV reporter had been doing his investigation and had not released all the information he knew, but was also under threat by the Daedalists. Before Archer can leave, Genai warns him of a group of Daedalists making their way to Ishida's apartment. Archer decides to end the threat and leads the group off to an alley. A fight ensues, to which the Daedalists are cut down one by one, Genai looking on from his vantage point, horrified of what he has seen. Archer is unapologetic, reminding Genai this is what needed to be done. Now, on to the next chapter, Redacted.
It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. Aristotle Onassis. In the boundless gardens I drifted, lost in the beauty of all that I had brought to life. Yet my mind kept returning to the hollow feeling of uncertainty surrounding the human known as Archer. I am Giamon, the digital mother of nature. I am responsible, in one way or another, for all the growth, blossoming, and spreading of life in the digital world. From the lush green forests adorned with vibrant leaves, flowers, and saplings, to the scorching deserts where even the simplest forms of life persist beneath the sands. From the majestic mountain peaks adorned with blossoms, to the depths of the sea teeming with technicolor marvels, it is all my creation. I curated this tapestry, bringing life into existence and letting it flourish with blissful joy. Long ago, I allowed it to develop on its own, like a nurturing mother who guides her offspring, teaching them to be aware of the dangers and avoiding perilous creatures. I provided distant guidance from my realm, reaching out to a world I could no longer directly interact with. My existence is akin to that of a creator peering through the windows of a sealed museum, observing their works on display. It is atonement for my past mistakes. I stood in my personal garden, a microcosm within the Temple of Mastery, situated between the digital world and the human world. It was a realm of its own, 3 circular domes attached to the main pyramid structure, revolving between the 2 realities as the horizons transitioned from day to night. This perpetual twilight bestowed our home with an eternal allure. With this sanctuary, it felt as though I was back on our world among the abundant creations I had birthed. An expansive tropical forest stretched in every direction, nourished by gentle green creeks that flowed with misting rain. It was a world within itself, a sustained sphere of creation. My gallery of vegetation adorned the grassy floor, offering a shifting tapestry of vibrant colors. The veins along the stems pulsated with nutrients, a feast for the eyes. And I had a particular fondness for the sweetness of the roots and the minty bananas that abounded. Yet deep within, I knew it was not the same. If I ventured too far in any direction, I would be reminded of its limits by the towering stone barrier that encased it. Covering in roots and budding mosses, it served as a consistent reminder that it was but a contained garden, a mere fraction of the world I had shaped with life. Nonetheless, I had to make do. As I drifted through the dense forest, which I had nurtured into valleys and rolling hills, my usual place of meditation, my thoughts were lately consumed by these dreadful events. Instead of designing new forms of fauna for my world, which I would craft or conjure to observe their success or failure, I found myself preoccupied with troubling thoughts. Often I spent my days playing with the baby Digimon who wandered through my garden, newly hatched from their eggs in Primary Village on File Island. Eventually they would have to leave, and while it saddened me, I reminded myself of how the common Digimon would interact with the vegetation I created. I cherished the sounds of their squeaks and coos, their absorbing eyes. Such is the nature of a motherly figure. However, as I pondered my unease, a sharp cry pierced through the trees, instantly snapping me out of my distant worries and focusing my attention on the immediate crisis. My ears honed in on the suffering of one of my children in the distance, and without hesitation, I darted towards it. Zipping through the trees, my wings a humming blur, I skillfully navigated the familiar terrain, having memorized every blade of grass and twig in my sanctuary. I could fly blindly at top speed when necessary. Finally, I came to a stop and discovered a small green bulb of a baby-level Digimon, a Tanemon in fact. Its panicked cries echoing as it struggled to free itself from a vine it had stumbled upon. With wide button eyes and flailing stumpy legs, it futilely attempted to bite through the encircling plant. Landing gently, I met its gaze.
Oh, Giamon,
It squeaked, pleading for help.
the vine is gonna devour me.
I gave a soft sigh and knelt down to the little Digimon, a bemused smile on my face. Tenderly, I brushed my palm across the vine, causing it to recoil and release its grip. It was not the Digimon's fault. She was just a playful baby, making her way through the world. A simple vine will not hurt you any more than the grass will. Let me take a look at your foot since you threshed it so much trying to get out. I'll make it all better.
Yes, please.
As I examined the stubby hoof toes and the fuzzy green fuzz on the baby Digimon's foot, I noticed a nasty rash where the vine had scraped it. Gently, my hand reached down, covering her foot entirely, while my other hand touched the ground. The foliage around me rustled slightly as the energy drained from it. Although I could perform the healing without drawing from the surroundings, it was easier this way. The energy flowed through me and into my palm of my hand, gradually fading the rash and restoring the smoothness of her skin. The youngling sprang up, beaming at me.
Oh, thank you, Giamon. That feels so much better.
It's no trouble. There's safety in numbers, and it's also a lot more fun. Go and find the others around here and play with them before your lessons later. I'll teach you how to get yourself out of tangles like that for next time.
Daemon smiled and bounded off into the trees, humming happily as she went in search of her friends. Just a few seconds later, my thoughts returned to the human in a distant world. As I tried to push through my mind, the surrounding trees seemed to lean in, as if yearning to understand why I was so bothered. It evoked a memory I wished I could erase. But even with all the oceans in the world, it would remain etched into my mind. What frightened me about this human was not the past horrors of the Great Firewall's breach, but what he might represent. I was familiar with the evils of my own world, but humans had the potential to match or exceed such boundaries. Infimon had warned me in the past about the uncertainty of Archer's unexpected abilities and brutality, yet his undoubted bravery in the face of my world's terrors was equally indisputable. I needed to know more, and only Infimon could provide the answers. However, I would first consult with Giamon, as he had the greatest understanding of warriors. Hovering through the trees, my mind was still entangled with these thoughts. I approached the large archway that led to the main grand hall of our temple. I had adorned the entrance to my side of our home with large roots and decorative vines, creating a path of grass that served as a natural welcome mat to my little slice of green within the main hall. Entering the main corridor of the Temple of Masters, I encountered a stark contrast from my natural sanctuary to the imposing sandstone blocks that comprised the hall. Towering trees were replaced by intricately carved columns, lining the hallway made of aged tan stone. The ceiling pointed upward, adorned with statues of great Digimon that we recognized crafted from white marble. The large statues stood higher, while the smaller ones were placed lower for better visibility. Even we, over thousands of years, sometimes needed reminders of those who stood for the digital world. Murals crafted by Giamon or Infimon when he was so inclined. They were depicted battles fought and the history of the digital world, captured in intricate detail. You could count the fur hairs or the number of scales, with further details inscribed on the mural. As I proceeded down the hall, lost in uplifting thoughts, I came across a mural that abruptly brought me back to reality. It accentuated my current unease, and I sadly passed it by, having already come to terms with our collective failure. This particular mural was a story I did not wish to retell. Continuing my journey along the corridor, I approached the northern part of the temple, passing the meeting room where we had spoken with Genai. The door to the forge room came into view, the intense heat emanating from within even at a distance of 100 feet. While Giamon remained unfazed by it, my skin began to dry up rapidly as I reached the threshold. The forge room was not his domain, it was far too small for him. On my way to his true realm, the large sphere at the furthest northern side, it felt like stepping into a desert canyon. Trophies from battles and tributes from fallen foes lined the large dome, displaying an array of axes, claymores, shields, knives, maces, chest plates, and countless other weapons that would take hours to count. Giamon didn't require a furnace. He utilized his own fire, with his other hand spewing flames onto the metal. I waited for him to settle the hammer down before interrupting.
Giamon, can you spare a moment from the forging?
With one final mighty clang and a shower of sparks, the towering dragon turned to look at me.
Of course. Something amiss.
I've been pondering over our earlier meeting with Genai.
Engrossed in your thoughts as usual.
You could use some introspection yourself, you know. Regardless, I wanted to discuss Archer.
What about him? I already told you what I thought.
It's what Jedi didn't know about him. Archer claimed he was willing to help, but a clandestine warrior doesn't usually volunteer to risk their life for others so readily.
Giamon let out a chuff of heavy laughter, a hearty but solitary burst. Grinning behind his helmet surely, he surveyed the weapons adorning the brick dome around us.
I could recount you of a time when the Digimon honored on our walls would eagerly embrace a fight against a evil far lesser than Daemon.
Jedi didn't describe him as someone seeking glory.
Jedi did mention he is a soldier, committed to his chosen path. Maybe Archer is seeking a good fight, or seeking retribution for past wrongs. It could be any number of reasons. Even if he isn't driven solely by a desire for combat, duty compels him to stand against threats like Daemon and Railius. He owes Jedi his life, and if nothing else, honor demands that he find a way to repay that debt. If he truly is a soldier, that is what he would do.
Putting it like that made me feel a little better. The simple sense of duty and a calling for justice could explain this human's actions. However, the lingering haze around him still troubled me. Giamon turned back and sent another blast of heat into the blade, striking it softly with the corner of his hammer.
I need to know more about this human before I put my mind at ease. Have you given any further thought to Jedi's suggestion of providing Archer with a better weapon?
Giamon looked over his shoulder following a strike.
Do you see anything in here that a human could lift, let alone wield in battle? Humans use guns, not swords or shields.
I glanced around the well-stocked armory, where most of the weapons were my height or even taller. They were designed for Digimon, who were naturally stronger than humans. However, there was a particular rack and shelves with more exotic weapons, intricate battle axes, warhammers, and a few longswords that Giamon had meticulously crafted, resembling the work of a skilled watchmaker. In the center of all of it was a single straight blade embedded in a simple hexagonal stone, serving as its centerpiece. It possessed a certain simplicity, yet the intricate details made it imposing. The matte crimson finish of the blade was sharp, with a dual edge honed to split a hair from tip to root. The hilt consisted of 9 black rings wrapped in a thin metal wire, crossing over several times. The pommel had a simple sphere in the middle of it, with carved lines creating the image of the digital world as a globe. Inscribed on one side of the blade were the words, "Courage Eternally Forged," and on the other side, "Blade of Fate," both written in digicode. The blade was firmly lodged in the stone, requiring significant effort to remove it.
Don't you think a full blade would serve him better?
He will die before he pulls that out of that stone. It belongs to no one now. Jedi gave him his own dagger. That'll suffice in a fight.
I didn't press the issue about the Blade of Fate. It was too painful to revisit even for him.
I'll see what Infimon knows. I'll let you know if he discovers anything else.
I departed from the fiery forge room of Giamon, the clanging sounds growing distant as my senses adjusted to the eternally different mechanical and electrical realm of Infimon as I drew closer to it. As the stone integrated circuits into the structure, cabling resembling veins bulged out and swelled, creating an amalgamation of stone and electronics. The built-in sheet metal and electronic components melded into the stone, with monitors displaying compressed and unintelligible digicode scrolling and light shining through small pinholes. At top speed, I flew towards Infimon's domain, eager to find solace for my aching heart and mind. I entered the singular gigantic dome where Infimon had been since Jedi's departure. At first glance, Infimon's domain appeared simple in its presentation, but the thousands of pinlights above creating the effect of stars in the simulated sky indicated that there was more to this space. Intricate designs of fiber optic cables as thick as tree trunks twined and flickered in the distance, carrying consistent information from both worlds. From the entrance, a suspended bridgeway provided a view into the depths of the lighting, where all the cables descended from above and coiled together below the octagon-shaped platform. The platform itself was made of a slick, plastic-like material, comprised of blackened glass tiles arranged into octagon shapes, stretching several hundred meters in width. The space emitted a monotone, electric hum, providing a peaceful ambiance for meditation. Infimon often spent his time here, delving into his own mind and the vast expanse of his knowledge. I had joined him many times in this practice, just as he had joined me in my world, even though he found the chaos of vegetation a bit overwhelming. Most of the time, Infimon just sat in the quiet of his own mind, accessing and absorbing information, with little wisps of lights shooting across the floor beneath him, indicating the data he was processing. As I hovered just ahead of him, he opened his eyes, his blue-gray gaze meeting mine.
Giamon, is something the matter?
I floated a little closer, drifting upwards to keep my feet off the platform, as they were slightly dirty from my world. Infimon kept this place impeccably clean, almost obsessively so.
Nothing too overwhelming. It's about Jenai's new ally.
Archer's past is bothering you.
Am I really that transparent? You must have discovered something new by now.
Infimon shifted from his perfect lotus position, slumping slightly forward. The light around him dimmed, leaving the dais in a dark gray hue, with only faint pin lights remaining. He surveyed his meticulously designed space, wiping his palms as if cleaning away dust. After a brief pause, he found the words to answer, his calculations complete.
Your concern is warranted. The search has been equally fascinating and troubling.
I stopped in midair, startled by the tone in his voice, and landed on the floor with a thud. Infimon noticed but allowed it, understanding that I had noticed.
What do you mean?
From Infimon's hand, small particles formed and fell into the ground, creating droplets of digital energy that cascaded down like a waterfall, and a hot white color emerged as he accessed both worlds within his mind. The data particles flowed back up in a rush, forming a humanoid shape between us. In a snap of static, the body became crystal clear, although slightly translucent, projected from one of the octagon tiles, emanating the light. The image depicted was a much younger human than Jenai had described. Additional screens projected from the sides displaying clear information for me to read. Infimon's thoroughness in providing details was admirable. The image showed the younger human wearing a woodland camouflage pattern uniform, the United States Army uniform, to be precise, according to the information. The projection also revealed a clear scar down his right eye and a healed gash on the side of his head, which had not been visible earlier because his head was shaven in this projection.
I delved into Archer's past. What I found was sparse, unusually so, and suddenly there was nothing at all.
By the code, he was just a child.
Another screen popped up to the left of Archer's projection, displaying a blown-up medical analysis sheet, highlighting various points of interest. Gunshot wounds, broken bones, and severe burns, but there was no mention of the facial wound or gash on the side of his head.
That is the troubling part, Giamon. There are no medical records or any other information about Archer's past before the military. They simply ceased to exist.
I blinked, looking at Infimon with heightened concern. As a master of information, Infimon had the ability to delve into any human databases, online at least. The fact that he couldn't find anything was not only disturbing but bordered on the impossible.
Ceased to exist? That's not possible with you. You have never failed to find something of value when you knew where to look.
Infimon spread his arms and gestured, displaying a spectacle of data in the form of letters, papers, and streams of information. None of it made any sense. The one word that appeared every few lines was redacted. Entire pages were blanked out or missing.
There was nothing to find, Giamon. It was as if someone targeted a specific time in Archer's past and systematically erased everything related to his actions in the last 10 years of his life. It was an extraordinarily intricate effort to make Captain Archer's life effectively vanish, leaving only his name and assigned serial number.
Why would anyone want to do such a thing? What could be the purpose behind this?
Infimon stood up, and the image transformed into the most recent version of Archer, deviating from Jenai's description. His hair was longer now, and his eyes resembled smooth green stone. His equipment and clothing were sleeker under his jacket, and he deftly produced his blade and pistol from inside in a practiced motion. Chill ran up my spine as he pulled a tight black mask over his face, leaving only his stony gaze visible. The weapon raised, and I instinctively moved aside, the sound of my wings buzzing even though it was only a projection. Infimon turned towards me, drawing near and lowering his voice.
Undoubtedly advantageous for a clandestine fighter with his skill set. To strike unseen and unknown, adopt false identities, to shed or discovered like a second skin, indeed the hallmarks of an assassin, as your Mastermind suggested.
Dread filled me again as I looked into those emotionless eyes, radiating a single note of anger that I had only seen in those who sought to control through fear.
But how does that explain what Jedi said about him being brave and protecting the innocent?
I wouldn't be the master I am if I gave up so easily. Everyone leaves traces, and with a few admissions from Jedi, my search had been aided.
The projections transformed and split into multiple flat images, floating as large murals depicting various places on Earth, mostly deserted areas, and a few tropical. Archer's outfit changed to striped camouflage. The combat armor was thick, and he held a metallic rifle in his hand, with his piercing green eyes showing determination rather than malice or threat. Infimon added a touch of animation to the projection, making Archer shift around with his weapon over his shoulder and inhale from what appeared to be a burning piece of paper, exhaling the smoke that dissipated into nothingness. Flat pictures of Archer with other soldiers drifted around him, displaying the word Rangers on curved banners. Most of these images were group photos featuring Archer and his fellow Rangers posing with weapons or sitting on military vehicles.
There was a battle at a place called Rio Hatio Airfield. The US Army Rangers fought in that battle, considered the most formidable and elite soldiers in the world. I found his name mentioned in this military magazine, proving his involvement. He distinguished himself in this very fight.
Infimon reached out, and a magazine emerged from the projection's light, its cover displaying Army Magazine. The pages flew open to a specific point, revealing a stone strip of cement and buildings in the midst of a tropical jungle. Infimon gestured to the page, pointing out a line of small print. I leaned in and squinted to read the text, which Infimon then translated into digicode for me to understand. The story described a fierce battle, accompanied by a picture of a younger archer in a dress uniform adorned with medals and ribbons on his chest.
While wounded, Lance Corporal Archer exposed himself to enemy fire to engage hostile forces on his own. His actions saved the lives of his entire platoon and routed the enemy from their positions. He was awarded the Bronze Star and Purple Heart?
From Infimon's hand emerged more projection particles, forming two distinct objects. The first was a small piece of metal forged into a bronze five-pointed star with a red ribbon above it. The second object was heart-shaped, with a human face in the center.
These are awards for actions in combat. They are not an easy feat for anyone, and to have accomplished this at such a young age is commendable. However, it is the only concrete information we have about him, and it pertains to events from many years ago.
The projection simplified back to an amalgamation of Archer's current appearance. Wearing the green jacket, black pants, and boots, he stood there without a mask or a gun, representing an enigma with an erased past. There was something familiar about him, but I refrained from suggesting it, even to myself. I owed it to the child on the wall not to judge someone so harshly when, so far, he had done his best in the world he had inhabited.
Then we must let his actions speak for him.
A leap of faith in a stranger.
He isn't a DigiDestined, Infimon. We cannot expect him to be one. But if Jedi see something in him, I will have the faith that he made the right choices in these perilous times.